Welcome to Win the Line, presented by the 33rd team. My name is Tanner Kern, joined alongside former CFL defensive lineman Maxx Forde. Max, we are rolling through the season. It's already week 7, which is hard to believe. I can't believe we're only almost at that halfway point, and the injuries are starting to stack up. We have Orlando Brown Jr., Walker Little, Teron Armstead, Andrew Thomas, a bunch of guys, just to name a few of them. But everyone's dealing with something at some point in week 7. So from a DFS betting standpoint, how seriously do you take these injuries?
Well, on Wednesday, when it's just a guy that's questionable, it's kind of hard to get that feel for it because some of these might just be vet days. You got guys that are a little bit nicked and bruised, but they're going to go on Sunday and they'll play full complement of snaps, so it'll be all right. But when you really want to keep an eye on that is Thursday into Friday. If they're still on the injury report, still limited or not practicing at all, that's when you kind of get concerned there. So those are kind of things that you want to look for. As a former Division I offensive lineman, how is it working in with those new guys in practice, getting ready for that week of preparation there?
It can be difficult because you want to practice next to the guy you're playing next to in the game, obviously. So it definitely can be a little tougher, but they are professional football players, and these offensive line rooms are small as it is, right? So when we're looking at all these, you never know. There's so many guys in the offensive line room every week that you play with and you practice with, and you watch film with. So it's normal, I think, at this level, but in college, it was definitely a little different, a little more challenging. I think from this perspective, if you're a bettor and a DFS player, just make sure that you find the guys that are questionable. If you look at the injury report and they're questionable with no writing next to it, that's not that serious. If they're questionable with an ankle injury or a knee injury, that's a little more serious if they're day-to-day. And then if they're on the injured reserve, those are the guys that you want to look out for and account for when it comes to betting in DFS play. But as you said, it's early in the week. So we're looking at some mismatches, obviously, up front. The first one we're going to look at today is the Pittsburgh Steelers defense going against the LA Rams offense. We look at the Steelers. They have wins because of their defense this year, and they haven't been statistically great, which is kind of crazy to think, but the offense has put the defense in very tough positions. So considering where they're at in the stat sheet, you got to look at the offense too. Also, when it comes to the turnover margin, they are top 10 in turnover differential this year, and they're also 4th in fumbles forced. Guys like TJ Watt, 8 sacks in the season, getting after it. So how do you see this Pittsburgh defense stacking up against the Rams this week?
Yeah, I think it's a good matchup. And like you said, this defensive front, this whole defense has really put the team on their back. There's only a handful of teams I can think of that have won games without really much of an offensive contribution this year. And Pittsburgh is definitely one of them multiple times. So, I think the matchup that they have is great. They have a really deep front. They're doing this without Cam Hayward, who obviously is a catalyst for that defense. And when he comes back, it's going to be even more scary for those opposing offensive lines. Having guys like TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, they can keep the pressure on the quarterback. And I know the Rams like to pass the ball. When you got a guy that you're dropping back 30, 40 times there, and you got a team that can pass rush like the Steelers, you're definitely putting the ball in harm's way because you get those sacks, those strip sacks, those lead to turnovers. You get the pressure. Those lead to a little bit less time to make the right decisions. You might get an interception or something like that. When you're facing a pass rush like this, it's tough sledding his offense.
Definitely. Watt, Highsmith, Marcus Golden, all these guys have been so good. But my concern about the Steelers defense is their secondary. It's one area where they've definitely been susceptible to some big gains through the air. The Rams like to pass the ball. So how do you see Matthew Stafford performing in this game? He's obviously going to have a lot of guys coming at him, but the defense is also giving up 245 passing yards per game.
Yeah. So it's just, I think it's going to come down to how can he deal with that pressure? And obviously he's a veteran that's been in this league for a long time, and he's been able to play with that a lot of times. A lot of times he was in Detroit there. They didn't have the best offensive front. But just because he's done it before, I know that he's been dealing with that hip injury last few weeks, might not be able to escape as well as he normally can. And that escapability against this front is going to be something that he's going to need there. So if he gets the time to dissect this defensive secondary, I think he can do it, but we'll see if he can get that time.
Yeah, I think the Steelers front seven will overpower this offensive line for the Rams, which has struggled at times this season. Look for TJ Watt over a half a sack. That's going to be a plus money prop there. So definitely worth taking when the prop numbers come out. Next matchup, we're moving into San Francisco 49ers defense coming off a good showing against the Browns. They played very well. They just didn't win the game against Cleveland. They gave up a few big plays against the Minnesota Vikings defense. I love San Francisco in a bounce back spot here from a betting perspective. From a defensive perspective, I think they continue what they've done all year. In Minnesota, while they do have some explosive playmakers on offense, obviously no Justin Jefferson now, they can move the football, but I just think San Francisco is going to be too powerful in the spot, and we're going to see guys like Nick Bosa getting after the quarterback.
Yeah, and we've talked about the 49ers defensive front a few times this year. A lot of times talking about those edges with Nick Bosa. You got Drake Jackson coming in on those pass rush situations. They just added Randy Gregory, who I don't think was there last time we spoke about them. They've got a lot of guys on that edge that they can roll through and keep fresh. But I really think the biggest mismatch here this week is on the interior. You've got Javon Hargrave is able to rack up the stats on the inside. Eric Armstead does a lot of things that don't show up on the stat sheet, but are very productive for your defensive line. He sets those picks, gets guys free, just creates a lot of disruption there in the middle. I think that's where they really have the big mismatch this week, because you are going against the Vikings, and Christian Darrisaw is definitely a force to be reckoned with out there on the edge. I think we'll get some fun matchups between him and Bosa. But I would look for those high leverage situations to see Bosa getting away from Darrisaw, just get him into a better matchup and one that he can win consistently instead of one that might be a stalemate. So I think, the inside is going to be that big, that point of, that's going to be where they're going to beat him up on, is on the inside this week.
I agree. I don't see Alexander Mattison having a massive game for the Minnesota Vikings in this spot. I see Kirk Cousins having a better game. But again, San Francisco can strike in so many ways. They can shut down the interior run game. They can shut down the quick game, especially guys like Nick Bosa. I think something that the 49ers do so well on the edge is get their hands up in pass rushing situations. And that is so devastating for a quarterback. So when you were playing back in the day, was that always an emphasis for you, or were you just trying to get to the quarterback?
I definitely was a guy who liked to get my hands up. I got a few bat downs in my day. So I know sometimes it's kind of counterintuitive, but I had defensive coaches that didn't love it because they thought that I should be getting to the quarterback. But shoot, when the ball's coming out quick like that, you just got to get in the pass lane and get your hands up and collect a knockdown there. So definitely something that I like to have in my repertoire.
There's so many plays where defensive linemen knock down passes and then they blow up the whole screen on TV. And you see this would have been a touchdown potentially if this ball is knocked down. So defensive linemen getting their hands up, it can't be stated enough. So important. And San Francisco does a great job of that. That's going to ruin Kirk Cousins' day a little bit, I believe. Moving into our budget plays for DFS here, we got the Kansas City defense at $2,400 against the LA Chargers offense, coming off a very, very poor showing against the Cowboys. And I think one thing that Dallas taught us is when you put Justin Herbert under pressure, he struggles a lot. Kansas City doesn't necessarily have the same authority on the defensive front as the Dallas Cowboys, but they are very good, especially with Chris Jones in there. Jones has been very good this season, 5.5 sacks. Mike Dana, 4.5 sacks as well. I think they're both going to be in Justin Herbert's face all day, and it's not going to result in it's not going to be a good result for the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Chris Jones, the thing I think that's crazy about him since he returned from that holdout, not only is he averaging over a sack a game from the interior, but he's actually got one in every single game. So it's not like he's got like a big splash game and then he's going quiet. He's just consistently keeping the pressure, definitely earning that contract that they gave him. And so I've said it before, I'll say it again, the quickest path to the quarterback is a straight line right up the middle there. And he's lined up over that middle. So I think, he gets in Justin Herbert's face, definitely causes some disruption. McDaniel, you mentioned, also getting some off that edge there. Karlaftis gets some pressure off the edge as well. I think this is the second best defense that the Chargers have played all year. They looking at their schedule, Dallas is really the best defense they played all year. And then before that, they've played a lot of teams that aren't really known for their defense. So even though the Chiefs are also not known for their defense with that explosive offense they've got over there, I think their defense has won them a few games this year. Not alone, like I said earlier, with the Steelers there, because they still do have Pat Mahomes, but their defense has been a big reason for their start this season. So
for a value
struggle for the Chargers. Yep.
Definitely. For a value $2,400 play, this is by far my favorite of the week. There's a lot of upside for the Kansas City Chiefs. They have good pass rushers, as we were talking about, Chris Jones, Mike Dan, a lot of guys that can get after the quarterback. Justin Herbert, not performed well under pressure this season. And then also you have to take it from another perspective too. The Chargers aren't running the ball that well, and Kansas City can stop the run. And their offense with Patrick Mahomes is not going to put this defense in bad spots frequently throughout a game or a season. So the Kansas City Chiefs have a lot of upside at $2,400 against a Chargers team that just hasn't found a rhythm on offense yet. How do you think Justin Herbert plays? Better than the 227-yard performance with 2 touchdowns and a pick that we saw on Monday night?
I mean, I still do think he's a very good young quarterback, and it's hard to see a guy like that having back-to-back down performances because so often with the talented players in this league, they do bounce back. I don't think it's going to be the kind of bounce back where he completely erupts, obviously, or else we wouldn't be talking about it here. But I think he does better than he did last week.
Yeah, I agree. Another value play that we're looking at for a very good defense, Detroit Lions defense at $2,700 against the Baltimore Ravens offense, which has Lamar Jackson, and that's a huge upside, but they haven't really found a rhythm this season, and we've seen that consistently throughout the year. But one term that we talk about a lot when we hear Lamar Jackson is rush lane integrity. So Max is a defensive guy. Can you break down what that means to the listener?
Oh, yeah, that rush lane integrity. So this is something that we talk about in that defensive line room consistently whenever you have a guy that can scramble. And there's not a lot of guys that can scramble as well as Lamar Jackson can. So I can assure you that the defensive line coach for the Detroit Lions is talking a lot about this week. That rush lane integrity, you want to have those 2 face rushers, 2 edge rushers. It doesn't matter if you have a stunt going on where maybe those rushers switch responsibility. Maybe you have an edge rusher come and take a face rusher lane. It's a guy that's typically a face rusher come wrap around to be the edge rush, but you need to have guys like on all 4 corners of the quarterback, as it were. So you need to have somebody in front of them on each side, kind of angled, and you need to take away those escape lanes on the outside. So just if you lose any one of those corners, he's going to find it, and he's going to get out, and he's going to hurt you if you don't have anybody there. So I know that's something that they're for sure going to be stressing in that Detroit room right now, probably as we speak. Because he's the kind of guy that when you don't have that integrity, you're going to pay for it with a about 15-20 yard run there. So
Yeah, multiple plays on Sunday in the Tennessee Titans game from London where the Titans didn't have rush lane integrity and Lamar burnt them. And that is going to cost teams games. So as long as the Lions keep rush lane integrity this week, I think they have a very good chance to come out on top and actually play well in this game. We look at Aiden Hutchinson. He's been great, 4.5 sacks. Alex Anzalone's also been really good at linebacker this season for them. So there's a lot of upside here. In the Ravens offensive line, I don't know if you agree with this, Max, but there's a lot of talent there. There's a ton of really good guys. Just haven't found that rhythm yet. They've been able to run the ball with scrambles more than they have by actually pounding it. And the passing game's been up and down. So just very an underperforming group so far, if you ask me. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. And I think part of it, too, is they are switching guys in and out. I know we've talked about Linderbaum and Ronnie Stanley on a weekly basis almost, it seems like, on that injury report. So they're getting guys in, they're getting guys out, and it doesn't feel like they can quite get that same group every week. I think sometimes that consistency within the group can help them kind of gel a little bit. And so I'm still not counting them out. I think this is a very good group, very talented group, like you said. I think the big thing with this matchup, why I like it, is just Detroit's defense is surging. They're doing really well right now. And I don't think that the prices have quite caught up to that. They're still looking at the Detroit Lions defense as a defense you pick on, and I don't think that's the case anymore.
I agree. So if you're looking at Kansas City or Detroit, which one are you taking as your favorite value play of the week?
Man, I think I got to go. I'm just going to take the $300 you're giving me there, and I'm going to go Kansas City. It's tough. If we're looking at it without the prices, I might flip a coin there. But I'll take the money and spend that somewhere else. So we'll probably play each one of those this week. And another one that I'll probably play this week too was we talked about that Pittsburgh LA Rams matchup. Missed our cutoff for the budget plays there at $3,100, but it just missed the cutoff. So I probably play them as well. A little bit of all three of those sprinkled in.
Yeah, definitely. You get more bang for your buck in different spots, but you might get a better performance in other areas. I'm going to go with Kansas City Chiefs defense for $2,400. You're looking at the Los Angeles Chargers with Justin Herbert or the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson, two really dominant quarterbacks, but I would rather go against Justin Herbert in the spot because they haven't got the ground game going consistently. Austin Eckler did just come back, but I don't see them running the ball that effectively this week. And also seeing what he did under pressure was not pretty. So I'm going to lean towards Kansas City Chiefs defense at $2,400 and take that 300 elsewhere. But Maxx, another great show, week 7. It will be in the books before we know it. We'll be back on to week 8. We'll see you guys next Wednesday for another episode of Win the Line. Make sure you check out all the content on the 33rd team on the site and then link down in the description below. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.